Let's talk a little bit about liens. What's a lien? How does liens work? Well, a lien is an interest in property. It's a claim against a debtor's property. And a lien gives to the holder of the lien the right to possession of some of the debtor's property if the debtor fails to perform its obligation, typically failing to pay back a loan. There are several different types of liens. The first is a judicial lien. And a judicial lien is one that comes out of a judicial proceeding, usually a lawsuit filed by a creditor. Creditor loans money to a borrower. The borrower fails to repay the loan. The creditor can then sue the borrower in court, and if they win, they get what's called a judicial lien over whatever funds that the debtor has that will satisfy the judgment. So a judgment by a court is judicial recognition that the creditor is owed a certain amount of money by the debtor. Now, this judicial lien may not be everything that you want as a creditor. I know my clients, when they would take a judgment against a debtor, I would often have to caution them that the judgment now doesn't guarantee payment of the debt. Instead, the judgment is yet another IOU from the debtor to the creditor. So the judicial lien will protect the winning party in a lawsuit. There are also what we call statutory liens. And a statutory lien is a lien on a debtor's property that is authorized by a state statute, meaning there's some state law on the books that gives to a creditor rights against the property of the debtor. Statutory lien arises from the statute itself, which gives to the debtor the power to assert this lien. Now, one of the most common statutory liens that you will encounter is called a mechanics lien. Sometimes it's called a mechanics and material man lien. These are statutes that provide contractors and subcontractors who work on real estate. They have an interest in that real estate in proportion to the amount of labor and materials that were used to improve the property. Whether the property was built from scratch or whether it was part of a renovation exercise, the law gives to those contractors a lien. Now, the lien is called a mechanics lien. It's not really about mechanics. It's about people who work on real property. And in a construction project, what will invariably happen is that every contractor who works on the project, until they receive payment, they will have a right to assert a lien against the building itself. So, general contractor, owner will contract with the general contractor will contract with subcontractors, the subcontractors will contract with subcontractors, and so on. Each of those contractors have a right to assert a lien, a property interest against the building. And that lien must be satisfied before the building can be sold. So mechanics lien is a very powerful tool, even for those without much in the way of resources, meaning you're a guy who does electrical work on behalf of a contractor who's working for another contractor who's working for a general contractor. You have a right to ensure repayment of the labor and materials that you use to improve the property. So the mechanics lien is a device that gives even the smallest of small businessmen a right against property. Very powerful. There's also what we call an artisan's lien. Now, an artisan's lien is a statute that allows for a lien to be generated when it is in conjunction with the repair of a personal property. So an artisan's lien is what a mechanic would exercise against a customer who did not pay the bill for the work done on their car. Artisan's lien. So you'll look for real property in the event of mechanic's lien. For artisan's lien, you'll look for personal property. Consensual liens means that the owner of the property is aware that it's granting a lien to a creditor. Mechanic's liens and artisan's liens and judicial liens do not rely on the consent of the debtor. A consensual lien is created when the owner of the property grants a lien to the creditor. We call this a security interest. This consensual lien attached to a personal property is called a security interest, and it's going to be governed by Article 9. The type of consensual lien you're probably most familiar with is the idea of a mortgage. A consensual lien that is attached to real estate that is being used to collateralize a loan will allow a creditor to take interest in the property. So a mortgage is a written document that specifies the parties and the real estate, and it's filed with a state or local government agency, generally the county clerk, and it becomes a public record that gives notice to the world that there is a lien on the property. Now, in a mortgage, the creditor is what's known as the mortgagee. The borrower is the mortgagor. I know that sounds backwards to some people, but that's the way the law works. So mortgages are a form of consensual lien. As I said, a lien, especially a statutory lien, is a very powerful tool, meaning if I go to file a lien against a building, against an owner, that lien takes priority over any other debt in conjunction with that property. I must be paid first. So liens give to those who are bad actors the ability to really restrict legitimate owners by the filing of these fraudulent liens. So a fraudulent lien would be any lien that a creditor files that's in an amount that exceeds what the property owner actually owes, or for work that was not actually performed on the property. You will see these type of disputes in the case of mechanics liens. Often the argument that this contractor did not do the amount of work on the property that they are saying that they did. And so you as a owner of the property are protected by the rules against a fraudulent lien. And those rules include penalties, actual damages, as well as any punitive damages for creditors that file fraudulent liens. So when you are out in the workplace and you understand how valuable the filing of a lien can be, keep in mind that there is a huge responsibility that goes along with it. So you must be able to establish that your lien reflects the work that was actually done on the property.